The goal of Hyperianism is to create a new humanity and a new earth, and a defining feature of a new humanity is one that has become conscious of their higher self. Hyper means higher, and as Hyperians, we seek to actualize our higher self and become transformed into a living archetype. Innerstar Actualization is how this is achieved. It combines hemispheric integration, Jungian individuation, and depth psychology, along with the critical underpinning of ontological mathematics and the understanding that we are eternal minds gaining higher degrees of lucidity in this shared dream. In many modern fields dealing with your health and well-being, you're seen as nothing more than a body. You're treated like a machine that requires a tune-up or replacement parts. Even in psychology, you're often treated as an amalgamation of behaviors that result from your body's chemistry. This is a result of today's materialist paradigm. While it's true that you do have a body that often requires replacement parts, and body chemistry does indeed result in behavioral patterns, you are something so much more. You are an eternal mind, a living, experiencing, feeling subjectivity of limitless depth. Your body is your avatar for interacting in the world. It's the objective part of you, and it does require maintenance. But you, as an eternal subjectivity, yearns for meaning. It's not enough to have a properly functioning body. You are a teleiotic, striving being that desires purpose. Many treatment methods today focus on alleviating psychological issues as quickly as possible by eliminating negative symptoms and consciousness. Unfortunately, this is usually a band-aid fix. It's covering up a symptom in consciousness rather than addressing the cause, the root that often lies deep within your unconscious. For example, in a world that sets meaningless goals for you to fulfill, such as getting a job and making money, depression often results from the inner core of your unconscious signaling to you that you have a purpose that's not being fulfilled. This signal is screaming to you to reconfigure your life, to maximize your potential and become who you truly are. But most people simply attempt to mask this signal rather than listening to it. Listening to these signals can be difficult for your conscious self because it will push you to venture outside of the security of your mundane life. It calls for you to break out of the endless cycle of your daily routine and put you well outside of your comfort zone. But we know the goal of life is not comfort or even happiness, as happiness is transient and fleeting. Rather, the goal of life is to find purpose and become your true self, to find meaning. The evolution of your mind and becoming of the true you results in a satisfaction that's well beyond an empty happiness that soon fades. Innerstar Actualization is the process of exploring the unconscious depths of you as an eternal mind and bringing together the hidden forces that lie within to develop a healthy mind, discover purpose, and actualize your true self, your higher self. Your higher self is the sleeper within, yearning to enter consciousness and become lucid in this world. Your higher self is what we call the inner star. It's the true you. It's you as an eternal mind, a monad. Contrary to what many mystics and New Age gurus teach today, the higher self is not simply there to guide you. The inner star is yearning to become conscious in this world. It wants to actualize itself and manifest its will in the shared dream of the holos. It's what you are, and your body, your avatar, is the gateway through which it steps into this world. I know you felt a deep power within, a burning fire that's yearning to be free. Innerstar Actualization is the process that allows you to access and release that fire within. Now, this first video will serve as a basic introduction to the psychological structure of a monad, you as a mind, and all the necessary components for Innerstar Actualization. If what follows seems a bit confusing, that's okay. You're not expected to understand everything in this first video. It's simply an overview. In the following videos, we'll dive into each component in much greater detail. As Hyperians, we know that our bodies are simply avatars. They're vehicles, dream characters that allow us to explore and interact in the holos. What we truly are eternal minds called monads. A monad is a living system of mathematical energy, and it's composed of many interacting structures. Some of these structures are conscious, but many of them are unconscious. These unconscious structures are called archetypes. The concept of archetypes was first introduced to psychology by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung in the 20th century, but its origins are much older, having been introduced to philosophy by Plato in his theory of the forms, and prior to him through various ancient stories. Archetypes are powerful structures in the unconscious that direct and control your life unbeknownst to you. You can think of them like programs that run in the background, constantly influencing what you do and how you behave. However, these archetypal programs exhibit their own wills, desires, wants, and needs to such an extent that you can actually imagine archetypes as having their own personalities. Most people imagine themselves to be a single self. But when considering these archetypal structures that exist within your unconscious, it's as though you are composed of many different selves and personalities all interacting, and very often they disagree, conflict, and contradict one another. For example, let's say you're shopping and you ask someone working there where to find a certain item, and let's say they reply, aisle 37. But they do this with a snarky attitude. Now, a more logical structure in your mind may want to simply go to aisle 37, retrieve the item, and complete the task at hand. But a more dominating and emotional structure may want to tell them to fuck off for being an asshole, and so you might feel conflicted. Another example is when someone is suddenly overtaken by a fit of rage that's completely out of character for them. They might say, "I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened. I wasn't being myself." This is called Archetype Possession. These powerful unconscious structures can actually take a hold of you and direct your life when you haven't integrated them. You aren't being yourself, so to speak. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." These examples demonstrate that when you consider these psychological structures, you can think of yourself as being composed of a multiplicity of selves. The selves that reside in your consciousness are your outer selves, while the ones that reside in your unconscious are your inner selves. This might seem a little foggy and confusing, but as we begin to explore the structures of your mind, it will become clear. So let's first look at your outer selves. These are the selves that reside in your consciousness. They're called the persona and the ego. The ego is the center of your field of consciousness. It's your sense of I and self-awareness. It's who you are when no one's looking. It's the you that you are when you're home alone and you feel free to be yourself. The persona is the mask that your ego wears to get along and interact in society. It's a fake you that you created in order to navigate the outer world. When someone asks you, "How are you?" the persona responds with, "I'm fine," even if you aren't fine at all. The persona and the ego are your structures of consciousness. As we begin to explore the unconscious, using a diagram will be helpful for us to visualize the various structures of a monad, an eternal mind. Let's use a circle as a representation of you as a monad. This is you in your totality, as a complete whole. This is the inner star, the higher self. We use the term inner star and higher self interchangeably. The smaller circle represents your conscious awareness, while the rest of the circle is your unconscious. The point in the center of your consciousness field is your ego. We've seen that your outer selves, the ego and the persona, reside within consciousness. While many methods today are relegated to the surface level of consciousness, Innerstar Actualization is a process that delves deep into your unconscious. A vast multiplicity of archetypes exist within the unconscious, each one varied and unique, just as people are varied and unique. But we can generalize them into 3 major archetypes. This is an incredibly powerful tool and model that will allow us to integrate and actualize. Within the unconscious resides your inner selves, and the 3 major archetypes are your shadow self, mirror self, and power self. During your formative years, your ego is often looking to fit in and adapt to what's acceptable by society. Your shadow self is composed of the parts of your ego self that society deemed as unacceptable, and so you repressed them into your unconscious. These are the parts of your ego that you've denied and cut off from yourself because they make interacting in the world difficult. Your shadow self can contain personal flaws and insecurities, but it can also contain creativity, individuality, sexuality, and willpower. Your mirror self is the most important archetype to integrate. It's also the most difficult. Your mirror self is the key to your unconscious. The importance of the mirror self cannot be emphasized enough. The mirror self is all about getting opposites to work together in harmony. Integrating your mirror self is the union of the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the unification of your masculine and feminine qualities, and the bridge between the worlds of the conscious and the unconscious. It's the key to actualization and the doorway to the unconscious. Your power self is the strongest of the archetypes. It's the blazing core of the inner star. This is the most dangerous archetype to integrate. Through your power self, you're able to not only transform your own life, but transform the world around you. So what about the higher self, the inner star? The inner star is the result of the sum total of all your selves. Each one of these other selves is just a fractured piece of the inner star. They're a portion of its light and fire. The inner star is who you truly are in your totality. It's you as a monad, as a mind. And as you become aware of and begin to integrate these other parts of your mind, the inner star begins to awaken. As this happens, your consciousness will raise as you become increasingly lucid in this shared dream. You will become more conscious because the inner star is becoming more conscious. You'll begin to understand what your purpose is and how you can begin to change your life and transform the earth. Just as you can begin to shape your dreams when you become lucid, when the inner star becomes lucid in this world, you can begin to shape this dream. You'll be transformed into a living archetype whose power and influence will ripple across existence. Most people have an extremely small and narrow field of consciousness, and they're completely unaware of their inner selves. As you become aware of them, your field of consciousness begins to expand, and they become integrated bit by bit as you access their power. The more you integrate all three archetypes into your consciousness, the more your higher self begins to actualize, the more the inner star awakens. You can imagine the process of inner star actualization as a journey. You, as the I, the ego, will travel through the dark forest of the shadow. Within its depths, you'll encounter a great mirror and step through the looking glass into the world of the unconscious. There you'll discover your true power and light the fiery core of the inner star. Once awakened, the inner star will come blazing through the gateway into consciousness and waking reality. In the next series of videos, we'll begin to explore the process of actualization in much more detail. Please note that these videos are a general overview only. This information is so critical that I'm making it available now so that you can begin to gain an understanding of this important process. In the future, we will have material available that delves into the process in much greater detail. Until then, this series of videos will serve as a general introduction to inner star actualization. Make sure that you leave a comment below and tell me your thoughts, like and subscribe. If you enjoy my work, support on Patreon so I can continue to create. So many say they support, but then don't spend the few minutes to fill out the sign-up form. Don't be lazy, guys. If you support us, help us move forward even faster. I want to give a big shout out to all my true supporters on Patreon. You guys are amazing and are the reason why this is all possible. Let's create a new humanity and a new earth. My name is Morg, and I am Hyperion. Ad Astra, to the stars.